Now it's worth taking an in-depth glimpse at the incredible story of Santorini's formation. The history of this island group is controlled at times by extremely violent volcanism, and its existence as it is today is entirely a result of its tectonic setting. Since its inception, as many as 12 Plinian, highly explosive eruptions have formed, decimated, and altered the islands of the region, forming as many as 4 calderas over the past 2 million years, and this process continues to this day. The location of Santorini caldera was originally home to a non-volcanic island, formed through the accumulation of shale and limestone, which were later metamorphosed and uplifted. The remnants of this original landmass are still visible today in the marble and limestone rock at the bases of Thurin and Thurasian mountains. About 2 million years ago, during the Pleistocene, the regional tectonic setting was dramatically altered as the African plate began its subduction under the Eurasian tectonic plate. This developed a stretch of volcanoes in the Aegean Sea, what we now refer to as the Hellenic Arc, and magmas generated through the melting of the African plate happened to begin upwelling directly below our primordial Santorini. This diagram shows the present tectonic setting, with Santorini located just north of the Hellenic Trench, where the African and Eurasian plates converge. Over the next 1.5 million years, the extruding mafic magma developed 2 shield volcanoes, which overlapped with the non-volcanic island. 2,000 years ago, Mount Thera, the shield volcano to the south, erupted violently and left in its wake Santorini's first caldera. Since then, similar Plinian eruptions in both Mount Thera and its northern counterpart, Mount Peristera, continued to occur. Around 4,000 years ago, it's believed that Santorini was dominated by a caldera from the last major explosive eruption, encompassing a resurgent dome. These figures represent a few of the proposed shapes and arrangements of this island complex, which we refer to as stronguli. The caldera we see today was generated by the last and largest of these Plinian volcanic events, the Minoan eruption of 1613 BC, which may have been as high as 7 on the Volcano Explosivity Index. It is considered the 9th largest volcanic event in recorded history, even larger than that of Krakatoa and with 10 times the explosivity of the Mount St. Helens eruption. Of Santorini's eruptive episodes, this is the best understood. Considering rock units from the time period, the event occurred in 4 broad phases, beginning with the expulsion of vast amounts of pumice and ash from Mount Thera, which was shot into the stratosphere, likely reaching altitudes of 35 kilometers. This material rained down on the surrounding islands, which are still coated in a thick layer of pumice. The magma chamber then shifted north, placing its vent directly below the Stronguli caldera. In response, the eruption style transitioned from Plinian to phreomagmatic, as magma was exposed to water in the depression. Enormous amounts of pyroclastic material were expelled with the energy of multiple atomic bombs, forming dense mushroom clouds. As the magma chamber continued to empty, the eruption transitioned into its 3rd phase, caldera development, as the boundaries of Mount Thera failed. What formed was a circular depression ringed with steep cliffs. Today, the Santorini Islands of Thera and Thurasia are what remain of the above-water portion of this ridge. As the magma chamber continued to migrate and surrounding water was depleted, the eruptive style shifted back to magmatic. This led to the 4th and final phase of the Minoan eruption, where, without the cooling effect of water, hot pyroclasts formed layers of welded tuff known as ignimbrite.
At the time, the Greek Minoan civilization had an established settlement in southern Santorini. This is a reconstruction of the city as it was. In contrast to Pompeii, no bodies have been preserved in the ruins. So it is commonly thought that the inhabitants of what we now call Akrotiri were able to evacuate the island prior to its eruption. The city, however, was engulfed in volcanic material and has been excellently preserved by ash. The uncovered buildings, pottery, and fresco have elicited global interest from archaeologists and tourists alike. On the nearby island of Crete, It is believed that the tsunami generated by the eruption of Mount Thera was in part responsible for the collapse of the broader Minoan civilization, and the sulfur dioxide and other particulates exhumed into the atmosphere cooled the surrounding climates and affected agricultural productivity of neighboring settlements. This is an animation of the caldera following this violent eruption. What had once been the site of a thrilling civilization was now a deeply scarred assemblage of volcanic material. This is the present arrangement of the island group, excluding, of course, the Kamini Islands at its center. Over the course of the last 4,000 years, numerous less violent eruption events have been recorded. In the center of the present-day caldera, uplift of the crust in response to underlying magma formed the resurgent dome of Palea Kamini in 200 BC. It was not until 1711 that its counterpart, Nea Kamini, emerged through a similar process. These are the sites of active volcanic activity, and you can find hot springs and smoke-producing fumaroles on both islands. The last observed eruption to date was on Nea Kamini in 1950. The good news is, despite its violent history, no one expects to see a volcanic event on Santorini as explosive as the Minoan eruption in the near future, as these typically occur in intervals of over 20,000 years. Smaller scale eruption in the next several decades are likely, as Nea Kamini is still volcanically active. The geology of the site clearly reflects its volcanic history, as the islands are composed of alternating layers of magma flows, pumice, and pyroclastic deposits, clearly outlining the sequence and styles of eruptions over the past several million years. As we said earlier, the basement of the island are composed of marble, limestone, and schist, which likely formed the initial non-volcanic island. One really interesting fact about the site is its rumors suggest that the Minoan eruption served as an inspiration for Plato's myth of the city of Atlantis, as the tsunami the blast generated is responsible for the collapse of Minoan civilization on the island of Crete. As well, the Minoan eruption expelled about 60 kilometers squared worth of magma and pyroclast. 64 million houses would be needed to contain this volume of material. Finally, Santorini is considered the only caldera on Earth inhabited by humans. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed learning about Santorini.